Well, hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. It's time to record Mike in the Midwest, episode 114. We're going to call this one The Last Time. See what that means here in about 15 minutes. All right, let's get set and let's do this. Riley just made a weird sound. All righty. Let's see here. We set. Got that. Here we go. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 114 of Mike in the Midwest, a mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. My name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast. And of course, one of the travel agents over at the Magic for Less Travel. Happy Tuesday to you. Hope you are having a great week already. And we're recording this show, episode 114, on Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. In case you listen to this one way down the line, you have a little perspective of when we're recording here as we are in what we call in the Midwest third summer. We had some nice fall weather here for a few days where it got down into the 50s and got up into the 70s, but now it's starting to get into the 80s again. Going to be back into the 90s by the weekend. So we're getting that third summer again in the Midwest before we get that real fall here shortly, hopefully by the end of the month. But we got that tease where we got to break out the jeans and the hoodies there for like 2 or 3 days. It was awesome. But I don't know how the weather is where you are. I'm ready for that hoodie weather, those sweatpants weather. But I mean, you gotta hold on to it because before long, then we'll be wishing we were back in shorts and t-shirts like we are again. So you always want what you don't have. But it's been pretty nice here in the Midwest, and I hope it's been great where you are as well. So let's talk about what's been going on here in St. Louis and here in my life over the past little bit so we can catch up. Of course, one of the big things this time of year here in St. Peters, Missouri, right here in St. Charles County, just west of St. Louis, is high school football. Our Francis Howell Vikings continue to have a good season so far. We are now 3-0 and ranked 7th in the state of Missouri for large schools. And we are the number one Missouri public school right now for high school football. So we're excited for that. Another big contest this Friday night against Francis Howell North. If you want to come out to the H, it's a home game. You can meet me out there. I'd love to see you. Yeah, right. I don't think you're going to make it out to our field, but we'd love to have you there. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, we're excited for that. I got to watch Mallory cheer the JV football games last night, freshman and JV. That was kind of fun up at the H. Got a picture on Instagram if you want to see a shot of that. But yeah, things are going good here. The podcasts are rolling right along. We're enjoying putting those together for you. I'm glad to see that Pam and Ricky have been back and we've been able to record like the old days over the past month or so. It's been awesome, being able to have the three of us together and work that out. Of course, the biggest news that we have been sitting on for about, oh my gosh, how long were we sitting on that news? A little behind the scenes here. I was sitting on the news that Ricky was expecting, I would say, for about 6 weeks. And it was really hard for me to not say anything because the way that went down, just for those of you that don't know, Ricky all of a sudden was telling us she didn't feel well. She didn't feel well. And for the first couple of weeks, Scott was filling in for us. So we were lucky because if you remember when this happened, I believe it was in like late July, early August. Pam was on all these vacations. She had a media preview of the Disney Wish. She also had a media preview of the Galactic Star Cruiser within like 2 or 3 weeks of each other. Well, all that was going on. Apparently, this was like right at the beginning of Ricky's pregnancy, but she didn't tell any of us this. Obviously, ladies don't do that. So Scott and I, every time we would get ready to record, Ricky would just tell us, "I don't feel good. I'm exhausted. I feel terrible. I can't record. I just feel ill." But she would tell me this every week right before recording time. Because, we record Wednesday and Friday shows back to back on Mondays. And so she would tell me, "Mike, I want to be there. I can't. I feel terrible." And I'm like, "Okay, no problem. I mean, if you feel bad, I get it. I mean, I don't want anybody to feel sick." And I mean, she's been there with us for 15 years. If she doesn't feel good, she doesn't feel good. And so I'm like, so Scott and I were like, dude, she's got COVID or something. Like she just doesn't want to tell us, but she's got COVID or something. And so it just kept happening and kept happening. And then finally, like she told us over a text message. And I was like, well, one, Ricky, dude, don't tell us over a text. Like we were so excited for her, but she like dropped it in this group thread of Pam, Scott, and I that this was happening. We were so excited for her. So we got to send in the GIFs and the memes and all whatever those are called with little moving, messages. We were so excited that we found out. But then the whole thing was now I know. And I have to sit on this information until she wants to make this announcement. And of course, ladies want to wait, and I get it, right? I mean, I remember with my wife when we were having Mallory, you got to wait until the time is perfect. And it's really hard too, I'd imagine, in this moment in 2022, especially for somebody like Ricky, who's on a podcast, who has a social media presence, that you don't want to blab it on a podcast and not have anybody in your real life know about it, right? She was really concerned, and I applaud her for thinking this through. Is that you can't really break the news on a podcast and grandma not know in real life, or, a uncle or somebody like that. So the thing is, like, she was like, okay, we got to think this through because I got to make sure that everything happens at the same time. So we recorded that podcast where she made the announcement live while we recorded on a Monday. It was actually a Tuesday, I think, that week. But sorry, I have allergies today. Terrible. But I wanted to get the show out there for you because I didn't want it to be late. But it's one of those things. She did it well, but I was sitting on this big news I'm so excited for, and I wanted to congratulate her on the air. I mean, this is a huge deal for our podcast. They've been wanting to start a family for probably, I mean, for a super long time. I remember podcast cruises from days gone by. Like, I may or may not be able to do this podcast cruise because we're trying to have a baby. And I was always like, if you can't make this particular cruise, there'll be other cruises. Don't ever sweat that. And they kept trying, and this is happening now, so we're so excited for Brian and Ricky. But I am so terrible at keeping secrets. And you put this big fat microphone in front of my mouth going out to thousands and thousands of Disney fans all around the world. And I was sitting on that news for like 6 weeks, so for like 12 or 13 or 14 shows, I had to be careful when I was referencing anything with Scott or with Pam, that anything about Ricky, that I didn't spill the beans. And I mean, I am pretty impressed. I got to say, I got to give myself a pat on the back. I don't do that normally, but I'm so pumped that I did not break the news. I did not spill the beans. Ricky got to break her news, and we're so excited for her and the little girl uh, that's coming. Is that now? I can't even remember. Now I'm second guessing myself. Is it a girl? Because I know she had the thing. It is a girl, right? If I was second guessing, yeah, it's a girl because we're all having girls. Yeah, because Scott's got a girl, Pam's got a girl, I have a girl, and Ricky's got a girl. Why was I second guessing myself there? Um, but yeah, we're so excited for their family and for what's going to happen. But it was really hard because you got to break the news all at the right time. Like, you got to tell the family, and you got to have it on the podcast. You got to have it on social media. You got to have a big cake. They had a big cookie that said it's a girl. They went to Walt Disney World, got some pictures the weekend before, I think. So we're excited for them. But yeah, that's kind of the behind the scenes. But I had to come up with a cover story, and I was joking that she was going to, be on some kind of a reality show this fall. Because if a lot of those reality shows record over the summer, people disappear from social media, don't go on their podcasts anymore. I listen to a lot of reality podcasts. So that's what always happens. Like, if somebody all of a sudden isn't on their show, or you don't see them updating their Twitter, you can assume they're probably on the next season of whatever show that they're known for. So I had to come up with a cover story. That's the best I could do. So we're happy for Ricky. That's what's going on around here. No big news around here other than high school football. I do want to say, I want to thank everybody out here who's, I mean, this is so minor, people, but this is why I love our podcast family. And you guys are a part of a family. You are part of my family. You mean a lot to me because you allow me to do this show. And I can't tell you how much I love doing this show. I would not have done this show for 4 days a week and plus the live shows, every Sunday night. I would not do this if I did not love it. I love this show, and I love the show because of the relationships. I've got to meet my best friends. I've got to meet people from all over the world. My world would be so small if it wasn't for this podcast. And because of your support, we get to continue to do the show. Well, I've mentioned, and this again, so minor, that my knee has been giving me a lot of trouble. And usually what I do with I've had, aching injuries. I had a calf injury, not a calf injury, but just a calf was bothering me about 3 weeks ago. I wrapped it and I kept running through it and it went away after a couple days. But this thing is not going away. And so a lot of folks have reached out and told me about, physical therapies, help them and so forth. A lot of people have encouraged me to go to the doctor and get it looked at. So I just want to let everybody know I thank you for your concern and your support. It means more than you know. And I am going to the doctor tomorrow morning, because my wife finally, as I was hobbling around the house, I can't go down steps very well right now, especially going down steps. It is painful. So tomorrow morning, I have an appointment with a knee specialist. So I will get that, just go in, tell them what's going on. It's a doctor that's a runner and works with runners and athletes. So we'll see what he says tomorrow morning. So I'll give you an update next week on how the old left knee is doing, and hopefully I can bounce back. Terrible timing though, right? I mean, wine and dine's like in 8 or 9 weeks, and then you got dopey. Of course, this is the year that I signed up for all 4 race weekends. Then you got when I was like at my lowest, because I was thinking, oh, here's the thing. If you're a runner, or if you're somebody who's like me, I like to be very regimented. That's why I run 13 miles a day. Like, I like to know that I've got my exercise in to start the day. I've got my win to start the day. I feel like I've got a positive thing under my belt before 7:30. And without that run in the morning, my days have been totally screwed off, and my mental state has not been as good as it usually is, because I just don't have that big victory at the beginning of the day like I like to have. And so, of course, we know this past weekend, D23 was going on. Everybody was excited about all the announcements. Some people weren't. I was. I'm excited for anything we get. And then all of a sudden, the announcement comes back of the Run Disney events coming to Disneyland again in 2024, which I never thought would happen again. And I kept telling Scott while we were in Disneyland over July, like, the one thing I wish I could have done was run a race out here. I love Disneyland. And how did I not go out here a decade ago? But I would have loved it. And I told him, man, if they ever do another race in Disneyland, I am here. I am going to do whatever I can to get in that lottery, to get in that event, because I know it's going to be a lottery to get a bib. But I'm going to throw my hat in the ring to be able to sign up. And darn if they didn't announce that on that Sunday when I was feeling my lowest, because I couldn't run. I was bumming. I had my knee all wrapped. I was icing it. And that's the thing, I'm going to go get it looked at and come up with a plan. I'm not a person who likes to go to the doctor. I'm one of those guys. And I like to just kind of solve things on myself. I think that's kind of a Midwest thing. Not for everybody, but it is for the Rallman clan. Like, we like to come up with a plan on our own. My grandma, when stuff would go bad, she'd say, put Vicks on it. And that's what we do in our family. Like, you grab some Vicks and you would put Vicks on it. And a lot of times that would help it go away, before you would go get like a prescription. A prescription was kind of like that's when things were really bad, when you went to the doctor and got a prescription. So now that I'm going there, the thing I want is a plan. Like, what is the plan? I hope the plan isn't to do nothing. That would be terrible. I don't think it will be, because even while I have not been running, I've been walking the same amount of time that I run every day. And so I've gotten in a decent amount of miles walking, and that's still not comfortable, but I'm trying to keep my fitness so that I don't lose my fitness for these race weekends. But we will see. Once I have a plan, I will get back, because the thing is, here's the bottom line with that, and then we'll move on to some other stuff. We have the Be Our Guest Lizards, and it's a team. It is a TEAM, a team. And I am a member. As I looked at the Facebook group, I think there's over 2,700 folks that are members of the Facebook group. So I'm one of 2,700 or so people that are a part of that team. It's a community, but this is a running sport. It's a family, but it's also a team. I look at it as a team because we're doing an athletic endeavor. And the thing is, team means a lot to me. I'm somebody who grew up in sports. I grew up around sports. My dad caught a professional baseball pitcher, guy who won the Cy Young Award. I've hung out with, people that played in the major leagues when I was a kid. I played, I've played a lot of sports, and I read a lot of coaches' books. I'm an Alabama fan, but more than an Alabama fan, I'm a Nick Saban fan. And I know some people don't like Nick Saban, but I like leadership. I like to read about how you can be your better self, how you can push people to get the most out of themselves. I like to see people who want to win, who want to not necessarily beat other people, but beat themselves. Make sure they're getting the optimal performance out of themselves, whether it's being a travel agent, whether it's being a speed skater, whether it's being a runner. And I'm not saying I'm going to ever go to the Olympics. I'm an old dude. And I was never fast, but I'm going to make sure I can do the best I can as far as getting the maximum amount of effort out of my body. So we'll see how this goes. But I want to be able to still, even at my older age, and I got to keep telling myself I'm not 25 anymore. I keep thinking I am because I look at myself and I don't see myself as an old dude. But I mean, I am getting older. I'm starting to come to terms with that. And I might need to cut back. I might need to modify what I do because my wife keeps telling me that, and she's exactly right. But we'll see. But the thing is, the bottom line that I bring that up is, the Lizards are a team, and I want to carry my weight. When you're on a team, everybody needs to carry their weight. If you're going to be a member of the team, there's responsibilities, and I want to make sure that I'm putting in my miles every morning, just like everybody else is putting in their miles. I want to put in my miles. I want to post that, show that I'm doing my part, and also encourage my teammates, show that I'm an active part of the team. And that's what I want to make sure that I continue to do. So I don't want to be a spectator. I want to be a part of the team that is somebody who is worthy of being a part of that team. So thank you for being a part of my team. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for all the encouraging words. We will see what happens with the old knee. Because the thing is, I'm not good with injuries. I've had a few over the years. Maybe I'll talk about them on a future show. But God, I hate this. I hate sitting on the sidelines. I hate not being able to run. I mean, I've been grouchy. I didn't run last Wednesday and Thursday. Then I ran on Friday. I was so much happier on Friday. But then I couldn't walk I haven't been able to run since Friday because the knee got so screwed up on that run on Friday. So we will see. I will give you an update. Okay, moving on. Who cares about Mike's knee? Way too much. I didn't mean to talk that much about the knee. Feedback from last week's show. Last week we recorded on Labor Day because we had to record the podcast on Tuesday. So I just talked about, since it was Labor Day, all the jobs I had done over the years, working at a skating rink, working at Chick-fil-A for like 3 weeks, cutting grass, my like 15 minutes of working at Hidden Valley ski area when I was like, I can't drive that far in the wintertime. My car won't make it. My truck won't make it. So here's the feedback we had from last week's show. Amy Rivers chimes in. Thank you, Amy, for being a patron. I appreciate you so much. She said, in our district, when the kids went back to school after the COVID shutdown, the kids weren't allowed to use lockers. They didn't want the kids to congregate. They wanted distance. So maybe that's why they're not using lockers, or the not using lockers came about. Before COVID, backpacks were not allowed in the classrooms in our district. Okay, so I talked about that, how nobody in Mallory School tends to use lockers, and they're carrying around these backpacks that are stuffed full of books. I mean, they are heavy. They got to be at least 20, 25 pounds. And that totally makes sense, Amy, because I didn't think about that. I mean, when I was in high school, COVID was obviously so far in the future. We never thought about it. And your locker was like your apartment. Like everybody is hung out between hours, like, okay, whose locker do we meet in here? And you would throw your stuff in your friend's locker between fourth and fifth hour if it worked out better. And then, after fifth and sixth hour, you put your stuff in that locker. So you would just kind of strategically drop your stuff next to the next class, depending on whose locker was where. Totally makes sense, though. You wouldn't want people congregating. I never thought about that. God, I got to remember, I used to be a teacher, and I've been away from it for now like 5 or 6 years, and it feels like a million years. I hate that. All right, David has David, thank you for being a patron. Appreciate you so much. Hey, Mike, great show as always. Regarding lockers in schools, my daughter is now in the 6th grade, and they change classrooms every period and have to carry around all of their books. They have no lockers. They only give them 3 minutes in between classes, so I don't think they would have time to stop in them anyway. Maybe they're trying to cram as many classrooms into the building and not take up space with lockers. Keep up the good work. Here's the thing, David, thank you for that feedback. And I have issues with this. A couple of things. First of all, no one should have to carry around all your books because, okay, this gets back to an article I did with my 6th graders. I don't know if you ever remember, but we had a thing that we did every Friday in my classroom. We had subscribed to this thing called Weekly Reader. Maybe you guys even did this when you were in school. Did you guys get Weekly Readers? It was like a little newspaper. It was like a little news magazine. It was probably 6 or 8 pages long. And what it did, it encouraged kids to read nonfiction articles and, be on, topical things that maybe 6th grade, there was one for every grade level, but you would, the kids would read it, and there would be, maybe a sports article about, Michael Jordan or LeBron James or whatever, and there would be like a topical article that would have to do with kids and their education and stuff. One of the articles I still remember having a debate because I'd always use these articles as springboards for writing prompts or debates within my classroom, stuff like that. They'd create a PowerPoint presentation or a Venn diagram, and we brainstorm out of this. But the thing was, the one I remember there was an issue. It was at the beginning of one of the school years, and it was about how this situation, like David just said, kids were carrying around these huge backpacks, and because of that, physicians were then seeing kids that were having spinal problems and like they were having issues with their spines and gait and stuff like that because they were lugging these huge backpacks. And basically, you know, it's not healthy for a developing child that's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old to be strapped down to a 25-pound weight on their back all day long and lugging that around. So that's an issue I do have with this. If you are carrying that around and you're carrying it all the way home, I mean, it's like training for the military. That's what they do. They weigh them down with these big packs, or like if you want to go into the police academy or something, that's what you do. You shouldn't be doing that when you're 10. I mean, if you want to be a police officer, wait till you're older and your body's like stronger. Here's the other thing with that. And I know that here's the debate, right? This is the devil and the angel kind of thing. I think a lot of education happens, a lot of the most important part of education happens on the playground, it happens in the cafeteria, and it happens in the halls. Socialization. I think probably 25 to 50% of what school is learning social norms and learning socialization with your peers and with the other members of the school building, whether it be custodial staff, whether it be administrators, teachers, what have you. It's the socialization within a building is paramount important in my opinion. I think during COVID, while we could Zoom and teach these, educators could teach math and writing, and it was really, really hard. What was missing was the socialization. You have to learn how to get together when there's 25 kids in a classroom and a teacher. You got to learn how to survive, how to work through somebody who's a little bit annoying, maybe sitting next to you. Because guess what? When you get a job, you might have to work at a cubicle with somebody that's next to you that's annoying. It happens. It's a life skill. And also, it just helps you to be able to make relationships, to make friends, to deal with people that maybe they're not going to be your friend, but you have to be able to get along with that person the best way you can. How to be respectful to that custodial person because they're there and they are just as important as the principal, is any administrator, and they're doing a job that is important to your success in the building. Those are the kind of things that socialization is important. 3 minutes between classes doesn't allow that socialization, which I get it in a school. They're probably thinking, if we give them 7 minutes, that's 7 minutes that these kids can get in trouble, because I get it, right? That's a time kids can get in fights. That's a time people can start gossip, but it's also a time people can build relationships and learn socialization. It's a tangled web, but I always thought socialization is hugely important. Okay, that's my soapbox on that. Thanks, David, for that debate. Okay, Trisha's got the last piece of feedback from last week's show. She's up in Wisconsin, by the way. Hope you're doing well, Trisha. Thanks for being here. She says, I learned from this episode that you have a bit of a criminal background. What, with painting walls and distributing flyers? That's right. I painted my classroom illegally. I did, and it looked awesome, NASA blue. And I did put cutting grass flyers in people's mailboxes without stamps. I was a little criminal when I was like 8, 9, 10. She continues, my list of jobs aren't terribly exciting. Nanny, grocery store, front end, and the deli, student manager of a college dining hall, hospital diet clerk, and job trainer for Goodwill before my current position as a registered dietitian. I do have one story from my deli days, though. I was using a meat. Oh, no. I've not read ahead on this one, but this makes me not want to read this because I'm a queasy person. I was using a meat slicer on some ham with a. Oh, I can't do this. When a safety guard failed and my hand slipped, sending my fingertip through the slicer instead. Don't worry. We threw out the meat right before I was rushed to the ER. To this day, I have no feeling in that fingertip. Thanks, Trisha. Ooh, I can't even think about it. I can't talk about it anymore because I'm about to pass out just thinking about that picture. Trisha, you rock, but that's. I'm weak on that kind of stuff. I am so weak on that kind of stuff. I can't do it. All right. So if you have any feedback on, hey, share your non-gory best like teenage job story. Like, what? Give me one of those for next week. I love those. Like, what's the craziest thing that happened in your pre-professional career job, like when you worked at the skating rink or when you worked at Dairy Queen or when you worked at the fireworks stand over the 4th of July or when you washed cars, whatever you did. Give me one of those stories for next. I love your feedback. The feedback is the best part. I think we all kind of like that stuff because we learn about each other. So again, patreon.com/BRGuest podcast. Leave that for next week's show. All right, a few minutes on this week's topic that I wanted to address and maybe get some feedback for next week. And it's about a meme that I just keep seeing on social media about once a month. And every time that it comes up on my Instagram feed, it's just a picture. I don't know if is a meme just a picture with some words on it. I don't know what the actual definition is. I should look it up. But I see this on this one account and they keep reusing it. And it stops me in my tracks every time I see it. And it makes me think. And it's not a Disney, it's not a Disney account. It's a 1980s account. It's like a retro account. It has something to do with like Lost in the 80s or the awesome 80s. I don't know. But it's a meme that shows that they have two of them, but they're essentially they have the same words, but it's a different picture on both. And what the meme says, one of them that stops me in my tracks, the picture is of a front yard with a bunch of bicycles like you would see in the 1980s, like Huffy bicycles, Mongoose bicycles, dirt bikes. Like we all rode, like it looked like a shot off of my street growing up because we all had bicycles. We all had dirt bikes. And that's what we did. I mean, we just ride our bikes all day long. And when we got hot, everybody would go to Tommy's house, or everybody would go to Ryan's house, or everybody would go to my house. And so in that front yard, there would just be scattered 5 or 6 bikes just everywhere. We just jump off them, run in the house, grab some Kool-Aid, play Atari, play Commodore, or whatever. The other one was a shot. This is the one that gets me. It reminds me of the movie The Sandlot. And it's a bunch of kids. They're not in, the same uniform or anything. It's a bunch of kids just playing street ball, just going down to the lot to play wiffle ball or, and it's more of like they all had gloves. They all had a hard baseball. They had bats. They were just going to play baseball at the corner lot, and it was just a bunch of kids just in their, shorts, t-shirts, jeans, ball caps, just whatever they were wearing that day. That's what they had on. No uniforms, just like a Tuesday afternoon in June going down to play ball. On both of the memes, here's the message. So it go to something to the effect of, this was the last time that this ever happened for this group of kids, and they never knew it. Okay, so reflect on that for just a second. And I'm not trying to make this a sad, because it's not a sad show. I'm not trying to ever make you sad, but I'm trying to make you think and appreciate things on this podcast, because we've all had those moments. Mike in the Midwest, whether you're on the West Coast, East Coast, whether you're in Canada, Australia, it doesn't matter. We've all grown up in our life. Even if you're younger, you've grown up to some extent. So think about that. Like there was a day that I went out riding my bike. I've talked about my friend Ryan. I've talked about Tommy was another kid that lived on our street. We had a lot of, and friends came in. Jeff lived the next street over. I don't talk about him much. But we had kids that would come move in, move out, for a summer, they would be there. Another summer, another kid would get replaced. But you had those kids on your street and you would do those things, right? You would all get together. You would ride bikes. You would try to build a clubhouse in somebody's backyard out of some old lumber that, one of the dads had left over from a project, building a deck or something. You would play ball. I mean, we played ball constantly up at Duchesne Elementary School. There was a backstop and that was it. There wasn't a dirt infield. There wasn't anything except a backstop. But we would take paper plates and a nail, and we'd nail the paper plate in the ground and make bases, or we'd use sticks. Sometimes we'd use old hats. We took and we used what we had to play ball. But the thing that stops me dead in my tracks when I see those memes is that's exactly right. Is that there was a day that we all went out and had the best day ever, riding bikes, drinking Kool-Aid, playing Atari 2600. And that was the last day we did that as kids. And you didn't even know it. You didn't even know it. It's one of those things, like it's the antithesis of that right now with the St. Louis Cardinals. Right now in baseball with the Cardinals, we're celebrating the end of the career for Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina, two of my favorite all-time baseball players. Adam Wainwright's my favorite, but Yadi's my second favorite. And Albert's right up there too. And we're celebrating all these milestones. We're counting down the days because we know that they are retiring at the end of this season. So we're making sure to appreciate every moment. Like you don't miss a game in St. Louis. You tune into every game because you never know what's going to happen. You only have X amount of games left. So we're appreciating that. But I think, I extend that out. And, when I see that, it stops me dead in my tracks because I had a very happy childhood. I loved riding bikes with my friends. I loved being able to my good friend Jeremy Steffens from 3rd grade. He had a Commodore 64 before I did. And I remember going over to his house many times and playing summer games on his Commodore 64. And he had a hamster right there in one of those things. Remember those things called a Habitrail? It was like a hamster cage that had like tubes where it had like a skybox that the hamster could crawl up into. I thought he had the coolest house. Like, didn't your friend always seem to have the coolest stuff compared to you? I mean, we didn't have a lot of money. He had a little bit more money than we did, so maybe that was the case. But I just love going over there to his house and playing on his Commodore 64, getting to play with his hamster. That was a pretty cool thing as a 3rd or 4th grader. And then one day, that was the last day that we ever hung out. But I didn't know it at the time. It gets back to I did the show about my best friend Steve at the time. He was my catcher growing up. We played baseball all those years together. I pitched, he caught. We grew up playing Little League baseball together, Corey League baseball together. And when we weren't playing our real games, we were playing wiffle ball together. We were together 24/7 for years. And then, we connected again. We played in an old dude softball league about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and just played a couple nights a week here locally. And then, I told you the story. He was killed this one weekend by a drunk driver. He was a teacher here in St. Louis as well. He taught PE. And, when I see that meme, I think, that week before we played softball together. And then the next week he was gone, so that was our last week, but I never appreciated it. Like we said goodbye after that doubleheader and it was just like, yeah, see you next week. Stinks. We lost one of those games. We should have won them. And that was the biggest worry in the world. We lost one of the 2 games. And then that was the last time we got to throw the ball together after all those years that we did those things. I think about that, like every growing up as a kid, and I've kind of mentioned this on the show too. My dad loves the show The Waltons, and I despise the show The Waltons. But I've made myself over the last 3 or 4 months, I've made myself here in the office. I watch The Waltons every afternoon so I can see why my dad likes that show so much. And now that I've been watching it over the past 3 to 4 months, I see why my dad loves that show so much. It's not the Waltons, it's the Rallmans. It's a family during the Depression that had nothing. It's my grandpa's family. It's my dad's grandpa. It's the Rallmans. It's a huge family in the Depression from the Appalachians. That's where my family's from. And if you see a picture of my family, that's exactly what they look like. So I understand now why my dad likes that show. So now I kind of watch it and I hate to say it, but I kind of like the show. But it's one, getting back to that, every Sunday after church, we would go to my grandma's house, my grandma and grandpa Rallmans, and grandma would always make us Sunday dinner. We'd have Sunday. She called it Sunday dinner, but it was lunch. We'd eat lunch at about 12:30 after church. And in my grandparents' house, my grandpa was a skilled craftsman, concrete guy, cement mason for 50 years in the union, but he could build stuff. He helped me. My first car was an MGB. We bought it for $500. He helped me fix it up so that it ran and it looked nice. He did that. But he built a deck on the back of their house, and on the deck, he actually built a gazebo off that deck. And it was a big gazebo. So every Sunday after church, the whole family, my family, my mom, my dad, my sister, my grandma, my grandpa, we'd all, during the nice time of the year, we'd go out onto the gazebo and have Sunday dinner after church. And that was like the greatest thing ever. But you know what? I didn't appreciate it as a 12-year-old. I wanted to be at home with my friends. I think that's just part of being a kid. But you know what? There was one day where that was the last Sunday dinner on the gazebo. And dang, I'd pay $1,000 to go back and do that one more time with my grandma and grandpa. I would pay $1,000. It's one of those things that Those things happen and you don't know. And I don't we're not supposed to know, right? I don't think we're ever supposed to know those things. This is how life is. It's not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. But I think sometimes you got to take inventory of your life, right? And appreciate those small moments. Like right now, my knees hurt. Okay. So my knees hurt. But this also is an opportunity for another comeback. Like if I get news that I have to take a little bit of a break from running for a couple weeks, maybe a week or two, okay. But that means it's a reset. I get to enjoy the process again because the process of rebuilding is fun for me. And the comeback is great. I like a good underdog story. I like to work back to things. I like a challenge. And maybe I'll get a new challenge. And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. But appreciate those things. And every time you go through a positive experience, like what really got me thinking about this is what if I can't run a marathon again? I've run 8, and that's pretty cool. But what if, marathon weekend last year was my last time crossing a finish line after 26-2? Well, if it is, it is. I don't think it is. I'm not going to let it. I mean, I'm pretty determined. I'm stubborn. I'm mean. So I'm going to make sure that I get to do it again. I doubt it is. But eventually, one of those races is going to be the last time I cross the finish line. So what that tells me is Mike, appreciate going down the chute every time from now on because it could be your last time. Make sure you look around when you go down that chute. When you go across that finish line, don't be bullheaded and be like, oh, I should have got a better time by 10 seconds. No, no, no. That's stupid. Be happy that you got to run the race. Be happy that you made it to the finish line. Be happy that you got to train for the race. Be happy that you got to experience it with so many people that helped you get to that point. So I just wanted to kind of remind you of that. When I see that meme on social media, and I'll have to share it somewhere, it does make me pause because I wonder what it was like that last time I rode my bikes with my friends. I don't even remember it. It's so sad. I don't remember my last like sandlot baseball game with my friends. I don't know when it was. I don't know where it was, but it did happen because I don't do it anymore. But take an inventory and enjoy the journey. All right, that's today's show. I would love to hear your feedback on this last part of the show. What do you think about this? Is it too much of a downer? Do you have comments? I would love to hear them. It make next week's show a lot better. Please leave them at patreon.com/BRGuestPodcast. Most of all, I want you guys to continue to be awesome. I want you to enjoy every day to the fullest and know that I appreciate you so very much. So until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon. All righty. We'll see y'all later.